Chad Hilts once turned rust into roaring machines, building an empire from junkyards and sheer grit. But when the cameras stopped rolling in 2020, the man behind Bad Chad Customs vanished, without a trace. No farewell, no explanation, just silence. What the world didn't see was the storm brewing behind closed doors. A legal battle stripped away the identity he fought years to build. Then came loss deep, personal, and devastating. His crew? Gone. His fiancée, Jolene? Disappeared from the spotlight. Even his son Colton stepped back, leaving fans wondering if the shop that once thrived on chaos had finally collapsed under its own weight. Was it the relentless online attacks? The brutal toll of fame? Or something far darker that no one saw coming? The truth isn't what you think. What happened to Bad Chad after the show ended will leave you speechless. Stay with us as we uncover the real story behind his shocking transformation. From scrap metal to television screens. Before the world knew his name, Chad Hilts was just another mechanic buried in rural Nova Scotia, working jobs that paid bills but never fed the soul. He managed the fleet's massive operations with over 700 machines, where one mistake could cost thousands, and hesitation meant failure. Pressure became his oxygen. But after clocking out, Chad returned to his real workshop, a cramped garage where discarded metal waited for resurrection. No blueprints guided him, no teachers showed the way. Just trial, error, and the stubborn belief that beauty could bloom from what others threw away. He pulled parts from everywhere, boats rotting at docks, airplanes stripped for scrap, even old refrigerators transformed into body panels. Each piece told a story of abandonment before Chad gave it a new purpose. His neighbors thought him mad, welding until 3 a.m., dragging home metal skeletons that looked like they belonged in graveyards. Then came the Green Goblin, a 1962 Chrysler Newport, gutted and reimagined with a 1974 Cadillac engine and an Oldsmobile roof that had no business fitting. The car screamed aggression, demanded attention, and refused to blend into any crowd. People stopped. They stared. They whispered. That single build changed everything because it proved Chad wasn't just fixing cars, he was creating monsters with personality. Green Goblin Customs was born, named after that first wild child. And the shop became a beacon for anyone who believed function mattered more than polish. Word spread slowly at first, then faster. Car enthusiasts drove hours to see the madman who built appliance parts and salvage yard finds. Each project grew bolder, roofs chopped, frames stretched, engines swapped in combinations that seemed reckless until they roared to life. By 2019, the Discovery Channel came knocking. They wanted to capture the chaos, bottle the magic, and show the world what happened when passion refused to follow rules. Bad Chad Customs premiered, and suddenly the world was watching. When fame became a cage. The cameras loved Chad because he gave them everything reality TV craves: tension, authenticity, and the constant threat of spectacular failure. No million-dollar facilities here. No safety nets or sponsor checks to cushion mistakes. Just a small crew, impossible deadlines, and metal that fought back. Viewers watched Chad weld at midnight, curse at stubborn steel, then pull off miracles when time ran out. Jolene managed the chaos, keeping schedules from collapsing while handling business calls between sparks flying. Colton, Chad's son, worked quietly in corners, learning the language of metal from a father who spoke fluent improvisation. Doug and Nate rounded out the core team, hands that turned sketches into reality when the clock refused mercy. Together, they built customs that looked like accidents waiting to happen, until the final reveal proved otherwise. The show stripped away every comfortable lie other automotive programs told. No fake drama needed when real buildings could fall apart in minutes, and no staged arguments necessary when genuine pressure is crushed down daily. Audiences felt the sweat, tasted the stress, and couldn't look away. Ratings climbed steadily. Social media buzzed. Chad's inbox flooded with messages from fans who saw themselves in his struggle. People working hard with little, dreaming big despite limitations. But television demands more than passion. It requires consistency, predictability, and content that fits network schedules regardless of reality's messy timeline. Discovery wanted episodic arcs with clean beginnings, escalating conflicts, and satisfying conclusions, all delivered on deadline. The pressure that once fueled Chad began crushing him instead. Production schedules ignored the truth that metal doesn't bend on command, and creativity can't be rushed. Every delay costs money. Every mistake played out for national judgment. Every shortcut noticed by someone online who paused frames and questioned methods. The grind never stopped because, when episodes wrapped, new builds immediately started. No time to breathe. No space to step back and remember why this mattered in the first place. Success started feeling like drowning in shallow water so close to air, yet unable to catch breath. Then the ground shifted completely, losing the name that started it. All just as momentum reached its peak, lawyers arrived with paperwork that turned Chad's world cold. Green Goblin, the name that launched everything, the identity carved from years of sweat, suddenly belonged to someone else legally. Licensing issues surfaced like cracks in stressed metal. Then the message was clear: walk away or face consequences. Chad couldn't use the name commercially anymore. Not for the shop, not for merchandise, not even for social media handles that fans recognized instantly. Everything had to change, and it had to change fast. The rebrand to Hilts Auto Company was practical, legal, and absolutely heartbreaking. Signs came down, websites rebuilt from scratch, merchandise redesigned, every digital footprint scrubbed and rewritten while cameras still rolled and deadlines still loomed. For a small operation already stretched thin, the sudden need to reconstruct an entire brand added crushing weight to an overloaded system. It wasn't just logos changing, it was erasing the identity that connected Chad to his audience. Fans confused about the shift flooded comments with questions, and some thought it was a creative evolution. Others suspected legal trouble but didn't know the depth. Chad kept working, kept building, but the joy started leaking out like oil from cracked gaskets. Then 2020 arrived, and the world broke. The pandemic fractured everything. Supply chains collapsed, making parts unpredictable at best. Filming rules tightened. Safety protocols changed weekly. The fast, improvisational builds that defined Chad's style became nearly impossible when materials vanished, and movement was restricted. Costs climbed while revenue stayed flat. Television remained expensive, and Discovery's focus shifted toward safer, bigger franchises that promised predictable returns. Bad Chad Customs stopped looking like a long-term investment. Season 2 wrapped in October 2020. No finale, no announcement, and no explanation was offered to the audience that showed up faithfully. Episodes just stopped airing, and Discovery moved on without ceremony. Chad was left standing in his shop, surrounded by unfinished projects and unanswered questions, wondering what came next. The internet's harsh judgment. The internet doesn't forget, and it rarely forgives. As the show's reach expanded, so did the scrutiny. Car forums lit up with debates about Chad's methods. Facebook groups dissected every weld, every shortcut, every decision made under pressure. Some critics dismissed his work as dangerous, calling scrap metal builds reckless and unprofessional. Others insisted the show exaggerated tension or skipped steps that real shops would never ignore. A vocal minority claimed everything was staged, that nothing viewers saw could be trusted. At first, Chad ignored it. He'd spent decades building his own way, never needing outside approval to validate his work. Noise was just noise, easy to tune out when hands stayed busy. But the criticism didn't stay confined to the welds and timelines. It drifted toward character, toward how he ran the shop, toward the people standing beside him. Strangers who'd never held a grinder accused him of being too harsh, too demanding, too unforgiving with his crew. Eventually, Chad addressed it directly in a video that offered no apologies, just blunt honesty. His standards were simple: show up on time, listen, and work hard. If those expectations felt unreasonable, his shop wasn't the right place. To some viewers, that sounded harsh. To Chad, it was survival, because when deadlines are brutal and resources are limited, there's no room for half-commitment. And the builds he attempted required total focus, and anyone disrupting that focus became a liability. Still, even someone built for pressure has limits. The constant need to prove himself to justify his methods, defend his work, and validate his existence became an invisible weight, crushing down daily. Online attacks never paused. Television pressure never lifted. Long hours demanded by both deepened the exhaustion until everything blurred into one endless grind. While the outside world expected him to push harder and move faster, the strain was already catching up. And just when resilience seemed infinite, real life delivered a blow no toughness could absorb. Heartbreak behind the cameras. In late 2024, Jolene's world shattered when her mother, Jacqueline "Jackie" McIntyre, passed away at 61 after battling cancer. And the obituary described her facing illness with grace, strength, and dignity, words that couldn't capture the hole left behind. Jolene later wrote about how peaceful the end was, surrounded by family, yet how shocking it felt watching normal life transform into irreversible loss within days. Jackie never appeared on camera, but she was woven into the fabric of bad Chad customs. She watched every episode from home, cheered every build, supported every struggle as if she stood right there in the shop. Her presence was constant, even when invisible. When she was gone, the absence echoed through everything. Jolene wasn't just Chad's fiancée or background support. She'd spent nearly a decade acting as strategist, organizer, and stabilizing force, on helping turn a hand-built shop into a seven-figure business through discipline and relentless effort. When someone carrying that much responsibility gets hit with grief, the impact spreads far beyond the personal. The entire operation depends on their clarity, energy, and presence. Instead of pushing through and pretending nothing changed, Chad and Jolene made a decision that ran against everything the internet expects from creators. They slowed down. Upload schedules dropped. The shop grew quieter. Public appearances faded into long gaps of silence. Then came the announcement that hit fans like cold water. The YouTube channel was entering hiatus, with no return date attached. For Chad and Jolene, the pause wasn't a surrender. It was survival. Grief doesn't respect schedules, and no amount of toughness compresses it into something convenient. The internet, however, rarely allows silence to remain empty. Speculation filled the gaps immediately. Fans whispered the business must be failing. Others insisted the couple split, that Jolene walked away, that bad Chad Customs was finished for good. Every theory traveled faster than truth, feeding off uncertainty and turning absence into narrative. A father and son rebuild. Together, after 2 weeks that felt like months, the silence broke. A new YouTube episode appeared without ceremony. A land speed record motorcycle build with Chad fully locked in and Colton working beside him like nothing ever paused. A simple message followed across social platforms. They were back, the work never stopped, and they appreciated everyone who stayed through the quiet. No explanations. No emotional framing. Just proof standing in the shop, sparks flying, metal bending, momentum restored. But viewers who'd followed closely noticed another change unfolding gradually, rather than all at once. Doug and Nate, familiar faces from the television days, had been appearing less frequently for months, showing up in fewer builds, standing farther from the center, until one day they simply weren't there anymore. No farewell episode, no final group shot, no moment where anyone explained what happened or why. Their absence wasn't announced, it was absorbed. And that silence did exactly what silence always does online. It multiplied speculation. Some assumed money was the breaking point. Others blamed burnout, long hours, or disagreements about how the shop ran. What matters is this: there's never been a clear public explanation. See, and everything beyond that remains rumor dressed as certainty. What wasn't ambiguous was the impact. Losing Doug and Nate wasn't just about fewer hands. It was about redistributing pressure in an operation already functioning under constant strain. The work didn't slow down, but it shifted. Chad took on more of the physical and mental load, leaning harder on the people still standing beside him. That shift brought Colton into sharper focus. Chad's son had grown up surrounded by grinders, welders, and unfinished projects, absorbing the shop's rhythm long before understanding the responsibility behind it. As he got older, Colton stepped back and explored his own path, creating distance that felt natural. But when YouTube became the primary stage, he gradually returned, first helping in smaller ways, then taking on larger roles as trust and timing aligned. By 2025, Colton was no longer a background presence, but a central figure, especially in builds like the land speed motorcycle, where the entire narrative revolved around a father and son pushing a machine together. On camera, their dynamic feels unpolished and real. Chad pauses mid-weld to explain techniques. Colton offers small adjustments that subtly change panel flow. They argue briefly, laugh more often, and find workable compromises without performing for the audience. The shop no longer resembles the structured chaos of television crews. It feels like a family classroom with fewer people, deeper trust, focus that can't be staged. Freedom over fame. Instead of chasing another television deal or waiting for networks to decide his value, Chad made a deliberate shift toward the few things he could fully control: his own shop, his own pace, his own rules. YouTube became the new window into his world, not as a polished replacement for television, but something raw and immediate, where cameras captured the daily grind before it resembled storylines. Early videos were rough and unfiltered, focused on builds, fixes, mistakes, and long shop days. Over time, they evolved into a steady rhythm reflecting real work rather than scripted tension. Alongside that shift, Hilts Auto Co.'s online store quietly became another pillar, offering shirts, hats, hoodies, and even Green Goblin-themed gear, tying the past to the present without needing permission from anyone else. It wasn't just merchandise designed to move units. For thousands of supporters worldwide, it became a way to feel connected to the shop, contribute to building something they might never see in person, and keep a small operation in Nova Scotia moving forward. By 2025, some outlets estimated Chad's net worth at around $2 million, A figure that doesn't suggest excess or celebrity, but confirms years of television exposure, custom work, and brand building turned a tiny garage into a legitimate, sustainable business. What those numbers never capture is the part that doesn't fit neatly into charts. There's Rockabilly Weekend, a long-running festival rooted in his local community where hot rods, music, and people collide in gatherings that feel genuine rather than commercial. There are charity car raffles, hospice donations, and quiet acts of generosity that never become episode titles or viral clips, but surface instead in local thank you posts and obituaries, acknowledgments from families who benefited during moments that mattered far more than entertainment. There are unplanned shop visits where younger builders walk in nervous and uncertain, then leave with a handful of new techniques, clearer direction, and confidence they didn't have when they arrived. Those moments don't trend online, but they ripple outward in ways cameras can't measure. When Chad talks about it all, there's no performance attached. Some weeks find him traveling to shows, performing live demos, chopping roofs, and signing autographs with Jolene at his side. Other weeks narrow back down to essentials. Just Chad, Colton, a few projects, and the familiar hum of welders in the same canning shop where it all began. The space has grown, but the philosophy hasn't. Everything still carries that built not bought DNA that defined him long before television arrived. He no longer chases headlines or needs networks to validate his work. The fame that once threatened to consume him now exists only as a side effect of something deeper. So what really happened to Chad Hilts isn't about collapse or scandal. He didn't disappear after a dramatic implosion, didn't unravel on camera, didn't lose everything to hidden secrets. What happened was slower, more human, and far more revealing. A television show lifted a small-town builder into the spotlight, then walked away without explanation. Critics challenged his methods. Legal pressure forced him to let go of the name that started it all. The grief hit his family harder than any review ever could. Friends drifted away, and his son returned. Instead of chasing fame harder, Chad chose a different fight. One centered on staying creative, staying independent, and protecting the small world he built inside that Nova Scotia shop. The result isn't a tragic ending, but a quiet realization. Success doesn't need to look impressive on television to feel real in everyday life. When the cameras stopped rolling, Bad Chad didn't lose his life. He finally got it back. What do you think Chad made the right choice, walking away from television? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next one.